So life is built of large molecules rather than individual atoms. And I kind of alluded to this when I said when we think about the elements of life like hydrogen and oxygen, um, they're in water. And water is a compound or molecule that's made from bonding. So the complexity of life is really going to come when atoms combine. And so this is really important because it's not just combining the traits of the two elements, it's really creating something new. And so this is why I say 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in chemistry and biology. So the classic example of this is if you look at sodium and chloride. Sodium in its pure elemental form is the metal that's depicted here. It's a soft metal, so it's not like, aluminum or steel. It's a soft metal that you can actually cut with a knife. It's highly reactive, like if a drop of water lands on it, it'll explode. And then chloride in its elemental form is chlorine gas, and you can see it here trapped in this vial, this yellow gas. And you might be more familiar with it in its form called mustard gas, which was actually a war weapon used really a lot in World War I. And so just to give you an idea, it burned people's eyes, it burned off their skin. It was really horrible stuff. So you take this reactive metal, this really nasty gas, but you put them together in a bond and you get sodium chloride, also known to you as salt or table salt. Something that has really unique properties now and is nothing like what it came from. So the complexity of life comes from when we take things and get something entirely new by combining them. So we're going to focus on 3 types of bonds that create new molecules or compounds. We have covalent bonds, hydrogen bonds, and ionic bonds. Covalent bonds are the strongest kinds of bonds we're going to look at. Whereas ionic bonds are kind of the second level. They're not super strong, they're not super weak. And then hydrogen bonds, this one here, is the third type of bond, and it is the most weak bond. And so, the analogy that I always use is that covalent bonds, they're like getting married. It's a pretty serious commitment when the 2 atoms get together. If they want to separate, there's going to be some effort that's going to have to be put in order to separate them. Ionic bonds are more like dating. So yeah, your toothbrush is over at his house, so there's a little bit of commitment, but in the end you could just grab your toothbrush and leave if you want to break up. Hydrogen bonds, maybe you can guess what these are. They're the weakest kinds of bonds. They're much more like a one-night stand. You're getting together for a brief moment in time, and then you're going to go your separate ways the next morning. So those are the 3 types of bonds. We're going to get into exactly how they form. But before we do, I just want to make sure everybody's clear about these terms that we're going to be throwing around. Chemical bonds will form molecules. So a molecule or a compound is 2 or more atoms bonded together. There is a distinction between these 2 words, and you'll learn about that if you take Chem 101 someday. When we're talking about molecules, we also need to talk about molecular formulas. You've probably seen many of these before. The example here is CO2. You probably also know H2O. And these formulas are telling you the atoms that are present and in what ratio. So in carbon dioxide, it's a carbon bonded to 2 oxygens. And so that's why there's a 2 here. So CO2 is a carbon and 2 oxygens. H2O is an oxygen and 2 hydrogens. So that's a basic introduction to bonding and molecules.